Hey everybody, how's it going? This is Eden Maybon of lightcycleastrology.com. I hope you had a wonderful holiday. Now, I know I look different. If you're thinking that's not Eden, it is. I have shaved Santa's beard off because I was a professional Santa this holiday season and around where I live. And if you've seen recent videos, you'll know that as time went on, I was getting this massive beard, and people were saying that I was starting to look like a wizard. And then I ended up bleaching it out and making it completely white, and then people didn't recognize me. And now I've gone ahead and retired the beard for the season, and so you're just stuck with my chubby little holiday plumpened face until I get back on that New Year's exercise regimen, as it were. So it's still me, but in today's video, I came out of my holiday slumber today after all of the festivities and eating and playing with kids and things like that. And I turned on the news, and I was absolutely blown away by the storm that ravaged the country over the holiday season. Now, during the holiday, of course, I've heard some, whispers about it, but I wasn't really watching the news. I was pretty busy just doing all the holiday stuff. And so, right before Christmas, I made a Christmas video that was me predicting what Santa might drop down your chimney present-wise based on the astrology. I thought that would be just a fun little thing. But of course, because it was a fun Christmas video, wasn't meant to be too serious, I wasn't really looking at the astrology from all these different angles, and I was actually sort of kicking myself. I was like, wow, this huge storm comes through. How come I didn't see it? I think astrologers do that a lot. We practice this art, and it is an art, and we try to 50-50, we try to get as much right as we can. But one of the really useful things is sometimes to go back in hindsight and study some charts to see how the astrology was manifested. And also, I had to say this now, if you're new to astrology or new to Hellenistic astrology, a lot of the way that the renaissance of astrology, as it were, is coming back to us based on the Hellenistic texts that have been studied for the last 30 years and now put into practice and then taught to students, people like myself, over the last couple of years. Most of us are subscribing to the side that would argue that it's not based on causality. So we're taking a look at the astrology for this big, massive winter storm, but we're not. What I'm not saying, and you're free to look at this however you want, but what I'm not saying is that the planets are causing the storm or cause the storm to happen. That's not what the classical astrology philosophies would look at it as. It's rather looked at in terms of a type of divination. So we're saying that the storm and the experiences that we had down here on the planet are connected from a higher divine realm in such a way that the planets can reflect archetypally those experiences that we have, because everything is connected from the highest realm of the cosmos. As above, so below. Hermes Trismegistus, as within, so without. On the highest cosmic level, we're saying that the universe provides signs, and if we are clever enough to interpret those signs, then we can sort of steer our destiny in such a way that we might be able to foretell things from time to time. And that's what we're doing in astrology. Anyway, I was kind of blown away because this was such a monumental storm. So what I wanted to do in this video is go back and look at the same chart that I did for my Christmas video starting on December the 23rd, which is when the big storm started blowing from the Seattle West Coast part of the country and across the states and ended up in on the East Coast, and was just a huge historic thing that sadly many people didn't even survive. Millions of people are without power. I don't know how many people are stranded at airports and couldn't even make it in time. It was just total chaos. And let's go ahead and pull up the real-time clock, the same chart that I basically used for my last video. But from now, we're going to turn the jewel and see the astrology sort of working in a different way here. So, because here's why. Because I had a wonderful holiday. I wasn't stuck in an airport, right? I'm way out here in Hawaii. I didn't really have anything too bad. So I can interpret the astrology from, the experiences that I had, but we also need to see how do we do that for people that had more of the darker manifestations of these symbols here. And okay, so where do we start? So right off the bat, we got this big stellium happening in Capricorn. Well, Capricorn is a winter sign. It is the sign that begins at the winter solstice when the sun moves into it and turns the season to a winter season, a cold, icy, dark, long-nighted winter time that is kicked off in Saturn's temple of Capricorn. So we have this big pile up already. We have Venus, Mercury, and Pluto already in the winter sign. The sun moves in on the winter solstice a few days before. Then the new moon comes through on the 23rd, and that's exactly when the storm came in. So this is quite extraordinary because in my Christmas video, what I was looking at was this aspect, this square that the new moon was going to be making to Jupiter in Aries here. So you can see the sun and the moon, they're at the very beginning of Capricorn, and they're making a degree-based square within three degrees to Jupiter over here in Aries. So that's a powerful aspect. Now, I was thinking that Jupiter as the symbol, the archetypal symbol of benefic great gifts or things that are surprising that come to you out of nowhere that are somehow really supportive or grand or great or charitable or generous or wonderful. I was looking at it through Christmas presents from that sense, but let's take a little bit darker look at this. So again, you have this stellium happening in the winter sign. So it's as if all these planets move into the sign of Capricorn and the cardinal energy of the season turns and says, here is winter, here is snow, here is ice. And we see that impressing upon Jupiter over here in Aries because the square formation. Now, all of the planets in Capricorn are making a whole sign square to Jupiter over here in Aries. So, but it's only the sun and the moon that are making not only a whole sign square, but also a degree-based square. And the square is said to be in ancient astrology of the nature of Mars. So here's what we got. We've got a whole big stellium of planets that is traveling through the sign of a malefic, Saturn. Saturn is the ruler or the host lord of Capricorn, but one of the malefics in ancient astrology, one of the planets that was there to represent things that could be oppressive, evil, dark, wintry, death. We have all these planets traveling through that dark, cold, winter, death-like time of year. We also have the square, which is said to be of the nature of Mars, making an aspect to Jupiter, who is hosted by a Mars, who's traveling through a malefic hosted sign, that of Mars in Aries, right? So we have these malefic energies dominating, making a square, making a powerful, domineering aspect to Jupiter, who we generally think of as a benefic. But Jupiter ultimately, at the end of the day, has to express his energies through the sign of Aries, through the lens of Mars, the other malefic planet. So there you are. That is some of the more dark and malefic energy that was also happening at the time. Now, one thing to note is that Saturn up here in Aquarius is next door to Capricorn. And there's two ways to look at Saturn in relationship to the stellium in Capricorn. One way says that Saturn is in aversion to the planets in Capricorn because the planets in Capricorn only can see planets that are sextile, square, trine, or opposition to where they are. And next door is not one of those places. So next door was thought to be a blind spot. So it's like saying that you're in somebody else's house and you really want to do something, like maybe you really want to hang out and watch the TV, and they're not home and you're bored. So you get your phone and you try to call them, but they don't have their phone. You see their phone ringing on the table and you know right away, oh, I'm not going to be able to do this. Now, if you were at home, you would know exactly how to do it. You would have everything there because it's your place. So all of these planets are like that. They have to be provided for by Saturn. And if Saturn is in a blind spot, Saturn is said to be indifferent to Capricorn when he's in a blind spot to Capricorn. So that means that stuff like this, for instance, let's look at it this way. The moon, what did the moon want to do over the holiday weekend? The moon wanted to be with family, right? The moon wanted to collect all the family members together and be a family. But if the moon is stuck in the winter with the snowstorm coming through and an airport, yeah, you might be with some of your family, but maybe you're not going to be with the big, grand, extended families, the aunts, the uncles. And that's what happened. So there were a lot of family members that were just not able to do what they intended to do. So the moon wants to be with family. When the moon's in Capricorn and Saturn can't see Capricorn, the moon may not get what she wants, or she may try to do that anyway, but it might not work out. Let's take another example here. We also have Venus. What does Venus want to do? Well, Venus wanted to make it to the final destination where all of the family is and have a party, right? Well, Venus can't have a party because she's stuck at the airport. The plane's not taking off. She's in the snow. She's in the winter. There again, Venus just wants to do the Venusian things, but can't. Not there. What does Mercury want to do in the sign of Capricorn? Mercury says, hey, Saturn, I want to travel. I want to get somewhere. I want to go back and forth. I want to do some talking and some socializing, And Saturn does not have the resources to make that happen. So what does Mercury end up doing? Mercury ends up traveling a little bit, but getting stuck in the snow, right? So you can see it over and over again with the way that this is working out, right? And here is the final piece to this puzzle that is really fascinating, I think. Now I'm sort of, this is a little bit of a mystical level here for me. But one thing that is quite interesting is that we're looking at Jupiter and we're seeing all of these energies make this testimony by square to Jupiter from Capricorn. Well, Jupiter is the depression lord of the sign of Capricorn. So that's very interesting, right? We normally think of Jupiter as Jupiter, but one of Jupiter's significations for sure is that he is said to be, if Jupiter is traveling through the sign of Capricorn, Jupiter is said to be depressed in the sign of Capricorn. Now, one of the reasons for this is because Jupiter is exalted in the sign of Cancer down here, and wherever planets are exalted, the opposite place is where they're depressed. So if they're depressed in Capricorn, they're going to be exalted in Cancer. And the reason that Jupiter, just as an aside, the reason that Jupiter is exalted in Cancer is because Cancer is the summertime when the longest day of the year is happening, and there's a lot of things that are growing and there's flourishing of life happening at that time. Well, Jupiter is this benefic energy that sort of provides unity and order and cohesion to life. So you have this grand benefic energy that is kind of working inside with the flourishing of life at that time. It's warm. It's fertile. Jupiter is said to be a planet that is very fertile. So you can sort of get a sense why Jupiter is said to be lifted up or exalted in the summertime. But of course, Jupiter is depressed in the opposite place of winter. So you have this malefic energy, or at least this frustrated energy, all these planets trying to do things, trying to go out there and do things, but they're in this wintry place, this Earth winter place of Capricorn. They're making a dominant square to Jupiter, and Jupiter is the planet that represents the depression of winter. So that's a little bit more of a mystical one, but I think that that one has something to do with it, if you ask me. So, anyway, that is pretty much the way that I was interpreting uh, the turning of the jewel for the same new moon energy that came through for the 23rd, 24th, 25th when this big storm was coming through. So on the one hand, you may have had some nice presents if you weren't caught in the storm, but if you turn the jewel, you may have experienced more of the devastating aspects of the manifestations of these planetary signs that are happening all around us. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. Please share in the comments below if you had any interesting stories or experiences, or if there is anything that you see in the astrology that gives some insight into what was happening. That's the best way to learn, is to share and like talk together and look back on things sometimes and revisit things. And pretty soon we've got some new astrology coming up for the new year. I think that January's astrology is actually very positive, and I'm really looking forward to making a video on that tomorrow and releasing it to get us prepared for the new year. So I hope everybody is safe. Please take care of yourselves and each other, and I'll be back real soon with some more astrology content tomorrow. All right, take care, everybody.